Well, hey there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or maybe even good night. This is Dr. Franklin, and this is a video tutorial for how to calculate the correlation R in SPSS. Before I begin, I just want to remind all of my students to make sure that they are in the virtual computer lab. You can access the SPSS program from a computer on campus or through the virtual computer lab found in learner resources within the Blackboard classroom, or if you go inside of the syllabus, you will find the instructions for accessing it there. Now, with your SPSS assignment opened along with SPSS, you should do the following. The first thing that you want to do is toggle out of data view and go to variable view. You'll do this by selecting the variable view tab at the bottom of your page. You'll know that you're in variable view because you will see variable view aglow. Now, once you're in variable view, for this particular assignment, you will be creating two variables based on the information above. Your first row will represent number of children, and your second row will be number of jobs in variable view. Each row in variable view allows you the opportunity to set up your variable that will be displayed in the column headers once you toggle back over to data view. So the first variable is children, and the second is jobs. Next, you will indicate the type of variable you would input. Under type, you have several options. We will be inputting numerical data, so you don't need to make any changes there. Next, you'll decide on the width, or how long the numbers you will input into data view can be, and you'll decide on decimal places, and these are of course the numbers that can go after your decimal. Now, with width and decimals, we don't necessarily need to make any adjustments, given that the numerical data that we'll be inputting just consists of one digit. Next, in the label column, you will write an extended name that can include spaces for the variable you are creating. Keep in mind that when you're setting up your variable in variable view and you are writing out a name, the name cannot include spaces, but the label is essentially an extended name and it can include spaces. So we could write children of Hampton Roads if we wanted to. And here for our extended label for jobs, we will write number of jobs. Note how I can put spaces. Now, under values, you can assign labels that are associated with certain numbers if you need to for your variable. If you have a nominal variable or an ordinal variable or any kind of debatable ordinal / interval variable that's like a Likert scale, you'll want to make sure that you're taking advantage of values by opening it up, and for whatever labels you have that spans a Likert scale or a range, you'll want to make sure that you are putting those labels in. And then to do that, you could just simply click add, and you would do that for each numeric you have within the range. Now, our data doesn't consist of any nominal, ordinal, or ordinal / interval data, so we don't necessarily need to touch values. Let's cancel that. So in this column right here, you can decide on the number of, decide on a numeric, if any, that you will use to show missing information. So let's say you had some gaps in your data. You could input in a random number within the data view section that will let the software know that this is missing data and that absence of a number shouldn't be taken as a zero indication of the variable. Since we don't have any missing data, we don't need to mess with that particular column. You can decide on the number of columns that will be visible in data view. We can keep it at 8. Alignment of right is fine. And for our scale of measurement, for children, you want to make sure that you select the right scale of measurement. Now, specifically, we're dealing with number of children. So given that there can be an absence of the variable as it pertains to certain couples and single parents, so it can start from 0, and that 0 really indicates an absence of the variable. It's safe to say that that children variable is a scaled variable. Remember that in SPSS, interval and ratio make up the scaled label. Now for number of jobs, one could have no jobs. That could be a 0, so we're going to indicate that as a scaled variable as well. So from there, we are done setting up our variables. Let's go back over to data view. So notice that now that we're in data view, we have children as a label at the top as well as jobs as a label at the top. The next step is to put our data into SPSS. So in SPSS, in data view, each row represents a participant. So you don't need to put in A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Instead, you can just focus on putting in the numerical data. So participant 1 has 4 children, and participant 1 also has 4 jobs. Okay. Now I'll just go ahead and put in all the data for number of children. Number of jobs. I put in all of the data. Now, after you put in all of the data, now it's time to run your bivariate correlation, or your correlation between two variables. So you can click on Analyze, go down to Correlate, click on Bivariate. Next step is to highlight the column label for the set of scores, in this case number of children, and move it over into the variable box. And then you'll also highlight number of jobs, move it over into the variable box. Afterwards, you can simply click OK. And upon clicking OK, we have a Pearson correlation R between children of Hampton Roads and number of jobs. Now, if you come over after moving from left to right from the Pearson correlation label, you will first encounter a 1. So the way these correlations are set up is that they're set up in a way where first they give you an indication of the relationship that the variable has with itself. So children of Hampton Roads, we see Pearson correlation of 1 with children of Hampton Roads. So it makes sense that there would be a 1 or a perfect relationship between the variable, because essentially it is the variable. And you'll see the same thing down here with number of jobs, and then the Pearson correlation R that exists between it and itself, which is 1. A 1 is a perfect relationship. Of interest to you would be that 0.125. So we have a rather weak relationship between children of Hampton Roads and number of jobs, and it is not a significant relationship because it is not below 0.05. That 0.768 is the significance for a two-tailed test that is being ran. So if it was below 0.05, it would be significant, but because it is so high and it's at 0.768, it is not significant. And then N just gives you an indication of the number of individuals in a sample. So ultimately there were 8 individuals, and 2 variables were assessed per individual in this study. So that concludes this SPSS tutorial. I hope that it was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Take care.